Back to the Scotland 9-hole cup expert division qualifying round, hole number 6. Here I've got a risky slice shot. With that being said, it has, even when the drive doesn't necessarily work out like I want, it has been dry, and I have been able to make the eagle, the easy eagle, either way. Even if we clip the rough or something crazy happens, what I would recommend is that you make sure that you're packing your longest rough iron and sand iron for this shot, just in case. It is a bit of a tricky drive, and it does require some attention to detail if you want to try and get some consistency on your drive here. If this shot doesn't, suit you very well, then I would recommend then just laying up, right? But we're going to use either a Zerk or a Globe, so you'll need a P5 side spin 2 plus, either a wind 0 or a wind 1 ball. We are doing a slice, so do not use a precision ball. I know that they have some P5 wind 0 precision balls. I found when testing those balls that I don't get as much curl out of them, and it changes the shot a little bit. So I recommend that you do not use a precision ball unless that's all you have. And in which case, if it is all you have, then I would recommend adding a little bit more right curl. We're going to try to keep our winds above 10 mile an hour. Anything under 10, I'm going to switch to a wind 0 ball. Anything 10 plus should be fine. We're going to use top spin as needed based on the wind strength and wind angle. We're always using 2 right spin. The curl is going to change slightly depending on the wind angle. And then there are some other tweaks that need to be made. You'll need to shift left in a couple of wind angles and wind strengths, and you'll need to pull back in a couple of wind angles and wind strengths, and I'll go over that in a second. But we're going to be starting to the left-hand side, the fairway, inside the 4th cut of rough over here next to this lone tree sitting by itself. So APOC 8, it'll be white ring touching the left side of the tree trunk. APOC 7 will be 1/3 of the white ring into the left side of the tree trunk, and then APOC 5 and 6 will have 2/3 of the white ring into the left side of the tree trunk. So what we're going to do is get our starting position as such, and then once we have that, we're going to turn as if we are going to adjust the shot so that we can get our wind angle. Now, I played this shot earlier before adding all the tweaks to it. So I added spin before checking out my wind angle here, but that's not how it's working for the most consistency. So I'm going to give you what I have for the most consistent shot. So we've got 3 major wind angles here. And what I'm looking at is this patch of bushes in the back. If you notice, to the left side, there's a solo bush, a smaller bush, and then to the right side, there's a solo bush that's a little bit larger than the one on the left. Those are kind of my markers. So if we look way in the back here, we're going to split the first 2 bushes. That'll be one line for me here. And then the right side of these bushes here is my second line. In the middle, we have neutral. Over here to the left, we're going to have tailwind, and over here to the right, we have a crosswind. Now, that might sound funny to you, but if you actually pull back and you look at the wind angles, that is what it truly is. It's more tailwind, straight tailwind to the left, and more crosswind when it's to the right. So here's the tweaks as follows. If your wind is, if you're in the tailwind angle, wind 10 to 10-4, uses 6 top, 2 right. 10-5 to 10-9 is 5.8 top, 2 right. 11-0 to 11-4 is 5.6 top, 2 right. And then wind 11-5 to 11-9 uses 5.4 top spin, 2 right spin. And here you're going to need to pull back to the top of the plus 28. That's for winds 11-5 to 11-9 in the tailwind angle. If you have the neutral angle, wind 10 to 10-4, you'll use 5.5 top, 2 right spin, and you're going to need to shift left away from the hole 0.3 of a ring. So you'll just make a minor shift to the left so that you don't clip the rough on your first bounce. All right. 5.5 top and 2 right. If your wind is 10-5 to 10-9, you're just going to use 5.3 top, 2 right, no shift. If your wind is 11-0 to 11-4, it's 5.1 top, 2 right, no shift. And then if your wind is 11-5 to 11-9, you'll use 4.9 top spin, 2 right spin, and you'll pull back to the top of the plus 29. All right, and that's for wind 11-5 to 11-9 in the neutral angle. If you have the crosswind angle, 10-0 to 10-4 uses 5 top spin, 2 right spin, and you'll need to shift left a half a ring. 10-5 to 10-9 will use 4.8 top and 2 right, and you'll need to shift left 0.3 of a ring. Wind 11-0 to 11-4 uses 4.6 top and 2 right, no shift. And 11.5 to 11.9 will use 4.4 top, 2 right, and no shift. I know it's kind of seems like a bit much, but we have some major wind angle differences here. Thank you, Playdemic. And if we don't tweak the drive appropriately, you're going to end up in the rough, or short, or somewhere you don't want to be. If you get all the wind angle and wind strength tweaks correct, you stand a good chance of landing in the fairway and having a decent shot at the albatross. With that being said, it is a slice shot. I have not tested every wind strength and wind angle, but I have tested this for a fair amount of time, and I have always been safe so long as I followed these tweaks here. It's always been dry, and it's always given me the shot at the Easy Eagle. And what I'll say on that note is, if the drive doesn't work out the way you want it, my recommendation would be not to get too cute with it. Just throw it up on the green, take your eagle, and run. You don't want to walk away from hole 6 here with a birdie. So if the drive doesn't pan out like we want it to, and you don't have a great shot at the albatross, toss it up on the green with some backspin. Make sure that you get a nice, safe, easy eagle, and move on to the next hole. The only other thing that we have to account for on the drive is going to be curl. And we're going to use different amounts of curl for the different wind angles. And it's not a whole lot different, but it is a difference that needs to be made. So there is no adjustment, right? The only adjustment we'll need is if we have to pull it back or shift it one side or the other, right? Besides that, the curl needs to be tweaked depending on the wind angle. So if you have the tailwind angle, then this is where you want your center line to be, splitting the triangle in half, just like my center line is here. That's for the tailwind angle. If you have the neutral angle, you're going to split that, the tip of the triangle on the left, and that line in half, and you're going to put your center line here. So this would be the neutral angle, right? This one is the tailwind, and this one here is our crosswind curl, right? So tailwind needs a little more curl to the right, neutral needs a little bit less, and crosswind needs even less. So crosswind is front tip of the triangle, neutral is splitting that one and the tailwind in half, and then tailwind is splitting the triangle in half with your center line. And that is right curl. It is always going to be full overpower, full right slice. You're going to want to keep your winds above 10 mile an hour, like I said earlier, to make sure that you have the best chance at getting a consistent bounce and rollout and giving you your best opportunity at grabbing the albatross here. Other than that, the approach shot will play differently depending on how you set it up and where you set it up and what club you're playing it with and how far into your club you are, right? So if you're playing this in max thorn range, which is what I'm going to play it here, if you set it up like I'm going to set it up here, then it would play P5 0 elevation. However, since I've dropped this shot, I have made some additional tweaks to how I'm setting up this approach shot to utilize more of the sticky spot and give us a more consistent run at the albatross. So even though I do drop this, I have begun to set it up a little bit differently, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. So here, I'm just setting this up with about half the yellow ring into the second cut of rough, and then I'm adding a right spin and top spin as needed to have the ball guide just touching the front center of the cup. And my second bounce is in the on the fringe here. But since making this shot, I have determined that it is not the most consistent way to play this approach, and I have tweaked it a bit. So what I'm doing now is I'm setting up a little bit further down, somewhere in this general area here. I'm adding more topspin, and what I'm looking for is my second bounce to be centered on the fairway here, right? Somewhere in the middle of the fairway between the fringe and the rough. We want the second bounce to be centered on the fairway, and then the ball guide the same way. It'll be aimed center cup, just short of the cup. But if you can get that second bounce centered on the fairway, this angle on this fairway here gives us a little bit of stickiness to where the up, down, and left, right isn't such a drastic movement. And it gives us a little better chance at dropping the shot without having to make a whole bunch of wind angle and wind strength tweaks and such. So that's my recommended way to play it. Set it up. Make sure your second bounce is centered on the fairway between the rough and the fringe. and have the tip of the ball guide aimed center cup and just short of the cup. That shot, if you're playing the Thorn, plays P5 minus 10% at slider if you're in Thorn plus yards, right? So everything went well on your drive. You landed in Thorn plus yards. You have the best opportunity at dropping this. You're going to want to play it set up that way using P5 minus 10% at slider. If you happen to be in the rough, the Nirvana rough bump plays the same way as far as setting up the spin. You're going to want to set it up just like I'm telling you to set up the Thorn. You want your second bounce in the centered on the fairway, ball guide just short, aim center cup. But you'll play that one P5 minus 20% at slider, right? True club. If you are in Grizzly range and you're playing it between 0 and 9 rings from min, then it plays P5 minus 10 at slider. If you're between 10 and 30 rings, it'll play P4 minus 10 at slider. If you're 31 plus rings from min, then it plays P5 minus 15 at slider. If you're 0 to 9 rings from max, it plays P4 minus 15 at slider. And if you're 10 to 30 rings from max, then it'll play P3 minus 15 at slider. And all of those numbers are under the assumption that you're setting it up the way I'm telling you to set it up now, whereas your second bounce is centered on the fairway and the tip of the ball guide is just short, aim center cup. If you set it up closer to in line with this bunker like I have it here, you're not utilizing the sticky spot and it will play at a different elevation. So if you're going to set it up this way where my current Thorn is set up, then you're going to want to add 10% or 5%, I'm sorry, 5% elevation to the numbers that I just gave you. So a Grizzly 0 to 9 rings, instead of playing P5 minus 10, it'll play P5 minus 5, right? And then, just add 5% to all the other values as well. That is if you play it this way and you don't utilize the sticky spot. I know it's a little complicated. It's a chance. It should be an easy eagle with a chance at the albatross. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you all get the drop. But don't fret on this one. It is a tough hole. It's a tough drop. Although this shot with these tweaks will give you an opportunity, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't lose any sleep. If I walk away from this one with an eagle, I'm still happy. If I just so happen to catch myself a chance to drop the albatross, I'm even happier. But not something I'm going to dwell on. All right, it's a tough hole. Even in a tailwind, given the wind angle changes that we're seeing, given the fact that in order to get it down anywhere, close to min Grizzly or max Thorn, you have to slice it. It just is what it is. And I did try to play this one without a slice, but ran into the same issues that I was having with the slice, whereas we're seeing so many different wind angles and wind strengths. The fairway is so bumpy. We're getting so many different results on the bounces and the rollouts that it really, in my opinion, it doesn't pay to sit here and worry about this hole too much. Hopefully you get the Albie. Worst case scenario, hopefully you're walking away with the easy eagle. Good luck. I hope you all get it, and I'll see you on the next one.